Money is emotional. When you have money, you can trust that you'll be secure, right? And you can love your life because you ain't broke. No, just kidding.
When you have to trust yourself to spend all the money in the right places, it can be challenging, especially if there's like something you want, but maybe you don't have the cash in that moment to get it. It's like, no, you've already allocated, set the money aside. I don't see it.
Right.
I'm Stevie Wonder to these charges. I just make sure that they go through and that my stuff is still on, connected.
You gotta trick your brain a little bit in this money game. You gotta pretend money's not there, or it is there because you planned for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would we schedule our time to go out to eat?
No.
I don't think so.
This is Sistas Declassified, the podcast where
Taylor
and Taryn,
your virtual sisters, share experiences, insights, and of course the juicy secrets that never leave the sister circle.
So shh, listen up. The Declassified convos are starting now.
Welcome back to Sistas Declassified. We're the real life sisters who decided to start a podcast instead of stressing about money.
Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe for your weekly dose of declassified moments. And today, I think we're doing a little more declassified gospel, yeah?
It's definitely gospel, some helpful tips, some stuff to help you with your money flow. Because last week we talked about money, but it was more in a like joking, like there was some gems dropped, but I think we could do a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I guess joking was coming from me.
Yeah, I was like, I think we were just sharing our personal experiences. But today it made sense to do a part 2 where we give a little bit more actionable tips for things that you can do when it comes to money.
And we're shouting out a few of the people that we have listened to or read books by that help us along the way. The declassified moment for today comes from The Heart of Money, written by Deborah L. Price. And it says that money is never just about money. It's about trust, security, love, power, and fear. And I like this quote because I think it goes back to what I was saying last week, which is that money is emotional. And it is that way because of all of these things. When you have money, you can trust that you'll be secure, right? And you can love your life because you ain't broke. No, just kidding. But really, I think money does bring you a sense of love because you're able to provide for yourself and others.
Right. I think it's a resource and one that can be viewed as finite, but it also allows you to, I guess, think outside of survival mode the more you have. And so it definitely taps into kind of more of our primal senses when we think about it that way.
Yeah, and I feel like in a relationship, right, if somebody uses their money on you, you feel like that's an act of love. So, yeah, I think those are just the ways that it kind of is an emotional thing. And I like that quote. I think you read that book, actually. Do you want to share a little bit about it before we get into our tips?
Oh, okay. You just switching it up on me.
No.
It was a while ago, and we will talk about some other books that my husband and I have read in terms of money that we felt like were just helpful for us pre-marriage and through our marriage so far to just kind of keep us talking about things that we might not talk about regularly. But what I enjoyed most about this book was that one gave us some time to reflect personally on what our different money types is, and she breaks down a few different characters, I guess, is that the word I want? A few different money tropes or people that you could show up as, both as an individual and in your marriage or your partnership, which I thought was helpful to kind of understand how my husband thinks about money and whether or not that's the same or different than me. And to learn how the different types may interact with each other when coupled together, so we know kind of what to expect from each other, but also what we may need to work on together to move through things. I don't remember all of the types, but they kind of break down into like being a martyr or a dreamer or a planner or somebody who's like really anxious or a scarcity mindset around money. And so it was just very helpful to talk about money in bite-sized ways while also doing some reflection about ourselves.
And I feel like it's a nice way to bring up the conversations without it being in a personal attack. Because I feel like sometimes when you bring up money conversations, it's like, are you trying to tell me something? Are you projecting something? Are you mad at me?
Right. And like I think I mentioned this last week, books are just a nice way to kind of have a neutral third party. Like I didn't decide to talk about this. This is just what the chapter was this week kind of thing. So it's definitely something I would recommend.
Yeah. So I kind of listened to an audio breakdown of that book the other day, and I thought it was interesting. So you guys should check it out. And you could try listening to a video on YouTube if you don't want to read it. Because I was curious, and I do actually want to read it, but I was like, I felt like if I was going to be saying a quote from the book, I should at least have a little more context, even though I know you read it.
Yeah. I think with anything, books like that are only helpful if you actually do the work and the activities. So while yes, you can definitely listen to it.
Did you see the side eye?
So yes, you can definitely listen to it, but make sure you give yourself time to actually do the activities in it. Otherwise, you're kind of just absorbing it and letting it bounce off you without going through the reflection piece.
Definitely.
That's always my challenge with audiobooks, especially ones that are like more how-to or activity books. Because I'll be real apt to listen to them and be like, that was good, and never come back. And I don't want that. I don't want that for you.
No, yeah, and I do think you're right. I think I know that I need to still apply some of the practices, but it was an opportunity for me to understand what the book was about. But yes.
Because you and Brandon are going to read it, right?
I don't know if we're going to read that one, or, we haven't decided which one, but we did talk about it.
Good.
Yes, but anyways, just getting into our tips and moving on. That book is a great one to read, according to Terrence. But I think the first tip that I wanted to kind of touch on, and I like this tip. I've heard it, I think, in many different ways. But I think it came to my mind because I was listening to Mel Robbins. I guess this video is almost a year old now. And the lady's name is Tiffany Alici. And she was kind of just talking about her book and her programs that she makes to help people pay down their debt and become financially free. And the main method that she kind of talks about is the snowball method. And I think debt is the big thing to talk about in the first place before we get into the ways to make money, because you got to have no debt or less debt. I won't say no debt.
Well, I think you have to know
what your debt is.
Well, I think you just need to know what debt you have versus your assets. Like, are you in the red? Are you at a place where you could pay it off with a certain number of payments? Like, have you done any sort of math around what you owe so that you could get to a point where saving feels more realistic?
Yeah, and I think the snowball method that she suggests, she gave like 2 different ways that you could think about the snowball method, which was just the first one. Compile all your debt, like you just said. Know what you owe and to where, and which one is the lowest amount. Once you know which one is the lowest, you pay that one off vigorously. So you put as much money as you can into your lowest debt. And then, of course, you still pay the minimum payments on your other debt because you're not trying to mess up your credit. As you pay off that lowest one, when you finish paying that one off, then you start to pay more to the next lowest. And then you so on and so forth. So you pay that same amount that you paid to your lowest debt, and you add it to your next one. Does that make sense?
It does, and I've heard that before. I've also heard the inverse too. I think starting with the smaller makes sense if you need that motivation.
Exactly.
If you need to see something removed sooner rather than later to kind of keep you feeling good and keep you going, that totally makes sense. I think something to consider in that method is also just what your interest rates are.
For sure.
So
that's why she said that. Yeah, that was the second part.
Oh, my bad.
Remember I said it was 2 ways.
My bad. I'm jumping ahead.
But you can say it. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, while you're thinking about like what lowest debt might motivate you, you might also just want to factor in your interest rates for each of those debt buckets. Because if you owe more, if there's more interest, for example, on something that's maybe a medium debt, you might want to consider paying that off first, because the interest rate charges will pile up, and then you end up paying more in the long run than you would have if you had tackled that first. So just something to consider when you're thinking about the snowball method.
Definitely. And I think the reason that she said the flip side was also that you end up paying, some people can only afford that minimum of the big one. And so if you start to pay off vigorously in the smaller one, you start to get that momentum that you might not have if you focus on the big one first.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess something to chew on, because debt is really, it can be a tool, but it can also be something that kind of holds you back from the things that you want. But I kind of was mentioning good debt because I think knowing, if I use this card that has points, is a good way to have debt, right? Because if you use that, you gain your points, but it's a way that you also need to be able to pay it off. So you're not going to buy things that you can't afford, but you are going to use it to build up your access and your resources, right? Because depending on what card you have, you might get into the Sky Clubs, or you might be able to get discounts on your flights, or I don't know, random things. There's a whole bunch of things that you can get with credit card points. Say it's Target, right? You might get discounts at Target. I know, we're not. That was just the first thing that came to my mind. Sorry, Target still preoccupies the world a little bit, even if we don't want it to. The side eye, it's taking me off course.
Sorry. I follow Your Rich BFF. I don't know if you know if you've heard of her before. I think her name is Vivian. She used to work, I guess, in corporate America, somewhere in like stock finance investing. I'm butchering this, but she knows her money was the point. And I remember seeing a few posts she did around like how to choose the right credit card for you, to your point, around if you're going to go into debt, choose a card that will help give you perks or benefits in life in other places. So like if you know travel is not your thing, you don't need the Chase travel rewards card because you ain't going nowhere, right? So all of these different credit cards pretty clearly list the benefits that you get from having them, and so you, with a little bit of research, you can figure out which cards will be better for you, and you could even consider like transferring or closing out cards to a card that has more benefits for your daily life.
Right. And like I know we're anti-Amazon too, but I had an Amazon card, and it was helpful. You get 5% cash back on every order that you make with your card, but it definitely can get you messed up. It definitely can get you messed up because it's easy to buy a lot of things on it, and that's where my debt snowball needs to happen. Because I was having fun with that card for a little while, and it's easy to get carried away, and that's where the emotional piece comes back. I think that Deborah was speaking to, because you got to trust yourself with this card, okay? It is a resource, but it's not something to use and take advantage of, because it can get out of hand.
Yeah, I don't think I got a credit card till I was like 24, because I did not want to owe anybody money, and I didn't trust myself to pay it back. And because I feel like I heard a lot of horror stories of people in college, because there's like really predatory folks who will come and table and be like, open a credit card, you're a student, da 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 da, and then people rack up all this debt and have no way to pay it back. But I think that brings us to our next point that I think is helpful, just around automating it. So once you have an idea of what all your debt looks like, whether or not you're going to use the snowball method or something else, whatever you can set to automatically happen, let it happen. And then you don't have to think about it, you don't have to worry about it. You know, your basics are covered if you're able to, send that money directly there. I know go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you automate, though, think about how many accounts you have. Because I think automating is easy to do when you have separate accounts for your bills.
Yeah.
It can be easy to do, obviously, with just one account. But when you start spending sometimes, and if you're not paying attention, then you don't have enough in your account for that automated payment. That's just for these type B people who are not fully on top of everything that's coming in and out of their account, or those type C people, right? Because everybody's not checking everything.
What's a C person? Sorry.
You got to look it up. But okay. I won't take us off track today.
I was just curious. I know what a B is. I just never heard of a C. That sounds like chaos. Is that what it is?
Kind of. But then they have some type A tendencies sprinkled in.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, I wholeheartedly agree with having a few different accounts set up for different things. Like for me, when I get my paycheck every 2 weeks, it goes to a few different places. So I have a couple savings accounts that it goes to. I have the joint account. That's where like all of our joint bills for the household are paid. And then I have my own checking account where the remainder goes. And so that remainder is kind of like, I need to do a little bit better job, to your point, around like what is this money for. But my remainder money kind of goes to the extras or shopping or guilt-free spending, whatever. It depends on the month. But I make sure that my basics are covered first, like the things that are necessities, the things that are savings, and then the rest is the rest.
Yeah, but I also think having that separate one for your bills and one that you use to spend money helps you to stay in budget, because only a certain amount is going to go to that card that you swipe or that card that you put in on your online shopping or whatever. So it just keeps you very in control, and it doesn't let the emotions kind of get all over the place. And then if there is a moment where there's an emergency or something, you already know where your funds are at.
Yeah, and it's nice because I think when you have to trust yourself to spend all the money in the right places, it can be emotional. It can be challenging, especially if there's like something you want, but maybe you don't have the cash in that moment to get it, and now you're debating if it should go on a credit card or if you should split this car insurance between your cash and a credit card. It's like, no, you've already allocated, set the money aside. I don't see it.
Right.
I'm Stevie Wonder to these charges. I just make sure that they go through and that my stuff is still on, connected.
You gotta trick your brain a little bit in this money game. You gotta pretend money's not there, or it is there because you planned for it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of places your money goes with, having a few separate accounts, you want to ensure that you have some sort of emergency fund, to your point. I think there's varying schools of thought around what an emergency fund is or how much it should have in it. But a concert is not an emergency, okay? We're thinking like things like necessities, rent, medical bills, some sort of accident that you may have to pay for. So things that come up unexpectedly in life are the things you want to have an emergency fund for. I would even say transportation, right? I guess I said accident, but that could be a car accident, a personal accident, whatever. To make sure that you can still do your basics that get your money in your bank.
But even accidents for other people.
Accidents for other people.
Your parents. Like there's stuff that might come up that you might have to take care of if you don't have kids yourself. Those are other emergencies. If you're a parent, there's all kinds of things that come up. Field trips. A random doctor's appointment. Now they need to go to the dentist. Now they need an after-school program. Now this.
And see, I don't even know if I would count those things as emergency funds. To me, that would be like a separate child fund.
No, and you're right. But I'm
thinking
just
like,
saying,
if I lost my job tomorrow, do I have enough money to pay my rent for the next few months while I find a new job, kind of thing, or to cover my health insurance or what have you? Is more along the lines of what I was thinking.
No, and you're right. But I'm just saying, for something that comes up that you do have to pay for urgently and you don't have the funds in your child fund account. Now, you are saying something in terms of your emergency fund is not in the same account as your savings account.
Right. And
I want to make sure that that's really clear, because it's so easy to go into your savings account and pull something out. But that's not, like you're saying, what the emergency fund is for. So I think that's what I was kind of speaking to. So have them be separate, because you don't touch that unless it's dire.
Right. So I think the dream is really to have 3 to 6 months of your like everyday expenses in that emergency fund, which might seem like a lot, but if you experience something like a job loss, it could take you a little while to get more money coming in. And so even if you can't start with 3 to 6 months, because that could be a lot, starting small with like $500, $1,000, something that could...
I was going to say even smaller, because realistically, when you first start your emergency fund, you have to remember you're also still living your life.
Sure.
So you might not have $500 right away to put away.
Well, I meant as the goal, right?
Yes.
I didn't mean tomorrow your emergency fund put away $500. I meant your goal might be $500 or $1,000, which in California for most people is not enough to cover your expenses for a month. So that's what I meant by starting small, with like your goal being small. 3 months, a month could be $5,000. So starting with $500 as a goal, you can work your way up to 5,000. That's a lot of math right there.
And I think goes back to what we kind of need in order for the money to grow, because we can't work faster than we need the money, unfortunately. So you have to have your money working for you. So we're not saying that these accounts have to be just sitting idly by. So you could have a high yield savings account that has like 4 to 5% interest that it gains, so that you're not having to work so hard for your money. And then also investing your money, which is a little bit trickier because you can't get it in and out the same way that you could if it's just in a savings account, but it can grow for you in a quicker way than it might in a savings account. And we'll get more into investing in a second. I think also your 401k was something that we talked about last week. But 401k is kind of tricky because it's nice that you can put your money in before it's taxed and then have your company, depending on where you work, match it. But because of the state of our political climate,
she don't think your money gonna be there.
I'm not certain.
Which you know, the world we're in today, it's a bit scary. But I do think, regardless, if you have a match program, go ahead and maximize that match if you can.
Definitely.
I'm gonna have a little bit of hope here that we're gonna be able to access
a little bit of dollars.
We're gonna be able to access some of those funds. I mean, it'd be crazy if it was just completely wiped and your money's gone. That would make me cry. But
I think money's just gonna be so different than we. Yeah, that's not what this episode is about right now.
But the point here is just to diversify and maximize. So if you have a 401k and you have a match program, put as much into there as you can. Because again, that's one of those things that you won't see. And if you can't maximize it right away, if you plan to stay at a place for a little while, increase it by a percentage each year until you're able to get to that maximum, right? And I think that's true with high yield savings accounts as well. When I compare what my Bank of America account has versus my high yield savings account in terms of the percentage I get back, it's ridiculous. Like a cent from Bank of America versus like $30 from my high yield savings account, which may not sound like a lot to you, but $30 every month, I'll take it.
Right.
And so just comparing where you have your money, seeing how you can make your money work for you more, even in those more basic accounts before you get into stocks and real estate and creating your own products and like where is your money right now and are you maximizing where it is right now?
Right. But I think the other areas, stocks and real estate and having your own product that you might be selling, passive income, are all still great ways that you can start to make your own money, but they do require a lot more research on the front end than a high yield savings account might, right? Because once you figure out what the interest rate that you're going to receive on your high yield savings and that it's a safe and reputable business, it's like, okay, bet, here's my money, you can have it. Versus with your stocks, you have to be a little bit more strategic, but they can be operated similarly to what we said about our credit cards, which is you might want to invest in places that you often shop, right? Because if you invest in places you shop, then you're also investing in yourself. So that's one way. But also in certain climates, I know people don't want to support war, but you could be investing right now in things that are booming during war. I know. I knew her face was going to say that. That's just for people who might not have the same moral compass as her.
I mean, I did say I have money in Bank of America. But anyway.
Right. I mean, our money is unfortunately touching tainted areas, even if we don't want it to. We do the best that we can. But also also investing in like the S&P and stuff like that. NVIDIA, those are things that are good to invest in right now. Tech companies that are going to be expanding into the future. All that good stuff. I'm not going to give you all of the rundown because I'm not an investment guru, but I think it is something worth looking into, and you can open your account and be so happy to watch your money grow.
Yeah, this is a place where I have been less active, but as I think about the little one growing in my belly and wanting to have more like set it and forget it money, investing is a place I want to get more involved in, because you can't save your way to being wealthy. Let's be real. Your money has to work for you, and like you mentioned, you can only work so many hours and work so hard. You need your money to be doing things while you sleep.
Right.
And investing is one way to do that.
Yes, and I also forgot investing in resources, so like gold and silver and things like that are also good to do, especially in times when the dollar is so uncertain, and we're going into this crypto world of what is our money going to be. So investing in like those non-renewable resources is really a good place to be at this time.
So just like more tangible assets. So that would include things like real estate as well, right?
Yes and no, because I don't know. I don't want to fully get into it because I don't want to say inaccurate information. So let's just go with sure. But
okay.
I think The other area, if you do have real estate, though, if you do have assets, is to just have a trust or an estate, because those can also accrue interest over time, and that money is protected in a way that feels it's more secure than a stock or investing through a bank, because they can make your money disappear. And in the trust, it's like your money is locked in, and you know exactly where it's going to go and who it can go to. There's just a lot more rules in place when you have like an estate or a trust, but you usually have to have a lot more assets in order to have that.
Yeah. Vashon had a surgery earlier this year, and they asked him about his will, and he was like, huh? And then we both realized we probably need those.
You definitely need those.
Some sort of documentation that lets people know who has what, who has control of what, and what assets go to where.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's just a basic will, if you're not ready to have, a trust or an estate, or you don't feel like you have enough assets to even make one, even just having some sort of living will, could help set folks up for should something happen to you.
Yeah, especially because I'm seeing that there's some new laws that are coming into play around what happens to your land and your estate after you die, or your home. So that might be something worth looking into. If you do have a home and you want your home to go to your children, it might be worth having some sort of trust or estate. I guess in thinking about trusts and estates and families and assets, I think it goes a little bit more back to the partnership, in that you might be building money legacies by yourself, but you also could be having a partner. And so I think it goes back to the way we started this, which was the heart of money and reading books and doing things with your partner to understand your money language.
And your money goals, right? Like, what does your soft money life look like? What is it that you are what is your enough number? And do you have enough touch points to keep on track with that? Something you used to laugh at me about that I think you're now gonna start doing is having some more life planning meetings. And she doesn't like me calling them planning meetings. But like my husband and I have weekly, twice a week, depending on the week, sit down to just like talk about what's going on in the week, but also talk about our future planning, our lives. This is when we would also like talk about what we read if we were reading a book together. And I mean, you don't have to do it weekly or twice a week. Maybe monthly is better for you. You don't have to call them meetings, but I think if you don't spend time with your partner talking about topics that wouldn't come up naturally, you're missing out.
Won't happen.
They just won't happen.
Yeah.
Or worse, you end up with having different energy around certain topics, and so maybe they want to talk about your home planning, and that's something you hate, and you actually don't want to talk about that. You know it's important, but like right now after work at 7:30 on a Tuesday, no, right? But if you have a scheduled time and place, and you can make it as fun as you want to. Maybe you go out to eat and you do it. Maybe you go to your favorite coffee shop. Maybe you set up some candles. You got the music playing. Like, you set a vibe so that it's an enjoyable time for you. But you know it's also a time for you to get down to business, so that you're not having these random, maybe tough or even anxiety-inducing conversations all the time. But you have a specific time and place where you can talk about the big things.
Right. No, yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. And I wasn't giving you a hard time in that. I think I recall we were trying to schedule something. And she's like, no, we can't, because that's my date. And it would be like, it was multiple times that this happened. And so it was just like, can't you guys schedule your date for a different day? That was my issue. But she's really dead set on is it Wednesday or something?
Wednesdays and Sundays.
Yeah, exactly. So if Wednesdays and Sundays is crazy, because Sunday is like a whole day that people might need to interact with you. But anyway.
We're here on a Sunday right now, girl, please.
Exactly. But before it used to be like, nope, we can't date Sunday.
That's because early on we needed all the time. We've got it established now.
So she can see that she can do more things than just that in one day. But anyway, the point was that I think that is a good idea and a good way to spark conversation with your partner. Because I'm sure that people do obviously have to talk about their finances with their partner at some point.
If they're healthy.
Right, but we do know that finances is a leading cause of divorce, right? So obviously people aren't having the conversations enough. And I think it's partly because people think it's just going to happen by itself. Or if you handle that bill and I handle this bill, then everything is straight. But no, it has to be more than just deciding who's handling what bill. Because that doesn't push you towards your goals. And maybe y'all just don't have none. Maybe you're just comfortable with exactly where you're at.
And there's assuming that we have common goals. How do you know unless you talk about them?
Weekly. Twice, maybe.
Yeah. Even. So the other thing is that it's not just about like planning and being strategic. It's also a good time to like have connections, celebrate small wins or things that you've accomplished. So it's not always just like business. Right. It's also just like it's protected time to make sure that we feel like we're on track. And money is just one of those topics. And I would encourage everyone to have money as a regular topic in there. Whether it's date night, your family planning night, whatever. Money should be something you talk about on a regular basis. I would say weekly, personally. But if monthly is what you can do, monthly is what you can do.
Everybody has to start somewhere. But yeah, I think that kind of rounds out all of our tips right now. Because once you know how to invest, once you know how to save, you got your emergency fund. We kind of glossed over other ways to accumulate money, which is like the real estate piece or the passive income piece. But I think you can kind of watch a different video for that.
We ain't your girls for that.
Because those require a lot more steps. But I hope this kind of inspired you to consider how you could grow your money, save your money, organize yourself in a way that feels more effective and efficient. Yeah, we can get into our Sister Circle question for today.
Wait, before we do that, don't we need to get into the books? Or you want
I forgot.
Yeah, so we mentioned at the top of this podcast, obviously, the Heart of Money book, Deborah L. Price. But there were a couple other books that I would also recommend, that I'm also recommending for you to read too.
Yes.
I think if you have a partner and you're thinking about getting married, Before You Say I Do was a great one for us to read through together, because it just asks some of those like life questions around what we expect from our partner, what we expect to bring to the table, what maybe child rearing might look like. There's a little bit of money in there, a little bit of faith in there. So if you are a believer, it might also be a good book for you to read through. But it just kind of reminds you of what the partnership is that you're trying to establish, and asks you some questions around whether or not this is the right person to be establishing it with. And like not in like a harsh way, but just in like a, Are we aligned? Let's be real, let's be honest. And where we're misaligned, do we either feel like we can move towards alignment, or is this an area that somebody's going to let go? Right? And so it was a great book to read as we were getting into marriage. The Heart of Money is one we read pretty early on in getting married, just because we felt like we had talked about money some, but we wanted to have some guidance, like we said, a neutral third party to kind of bring us through to better understand our own connection with money. And then lastly, this one's probably one of my favorites. She's rolling her eyes because I talk about these people like I know them. Kevin and Melissa what? Oh. It's okay. Kevin and Melissa Fredericks, aka Kev on Stage and Mrs. Kev on Stage, two of my favorite content creators. But they have a book called Marriage Be Hard. I would say this is more for reading once you get married. And I think that's when we decided to read it as well. They've been married for a little over 20 years. They got married young, like in their early 20s. And so they kind of share what life has been like being married. Because I think we make a lot of assumptions around marriage being easy, or even love being easy. And
like it just flows.
Like it just flows, but really love is a verb, right? Like there's lots of actions and sacrifices required, tough conversations required. And this was a great one to reflect on post-marriage around like what it takes to keep it going. And to hear it from somebody who's been in it for 20 plus years is a helpful lens to have. So those were my top 3 recommendations for those who are thinking about how they might talk about money or just life with their partners.
Cool. Well, I plan to check those out. And now we can get into our Sister Circle question, which is just, what is one money habit that you want to start for yourself? Drop it down below. We'd love to hear which area you feel like you could grow in. And I guess I could answer for myself this question too. An area that I'd like to grow in is probably investing more, and growing my emergency fund a little bit more.
Yeah, I would double down on that answer. I think I have money set aside, but it's not necessarily tagged to go specific places, so I need to be more clear with where my currently saved money is allotted to, and then also investing, because I think there's like 529 education investments you can make for. I'm in mommy mode, so I'm just thinking about like, all right, I had enough money to feel secure for just me or just me and my husband, but now we got a third party joining. I need a little bit more leverage in this space, a little bit more resources.
Yeah.
Good thing she's gonna have a nice rich she or he. I said she.
Because you know what it is.
I don't. I actually think it's a boy, but that's a whole nother conversation.
I think it's a girl.
Oh, they're kicking me right now. They're gonna have a rich
girl.
They're gonna have a rich auntie to take care of them. So, maybe I don't have to worry too much. The auntie's gonna have all the investments for everybody.
Yes. But yeah, so let us know down below. We'll be excited to hear from you, and we hope we can all get our money up together.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.